if you're not clear on, like, say, me as who your consumer is and what you're offering and, what they need to hear to make a decision and what questions they have and, how they make a decision and what their process is, if you don't have that level of clarity, then you're potentially missing that opportunity. And, when I was looking at all of these websites, I think I like shortlisted it to 5. And straight up 3 got out the door. Like, I was like, nope, done. Like, they don't look good to me. Their reviews aren't good. I can't find the information I need. Yep. I'm not even going to bother. So, they lost my business right then. They've lost opportunities. And if they're losing me, then how many other opportunities are they losing? So, it's about, you go to a website, you get on there and you're like, wow, they're really talking to me. They know me better than I know myself. Like, they're not talking about their features and benefits. They're talking about, how it's going to change my life, how it's going to reduce my stress, how it's going to improve my business. And they really, really understand their target audience.
Welcome to Saul Searching, the Saul Recruitment Podcast, where we tackle all sorts of great topics in the areas of recruitment, job searching, mindset, technology, marketing, culture, and lots more. It's amazing what you'll pick up. Thanks for joining me. Welcome, everyone. It's Friday afternoon, June. It's Darren Saul here, your host of Saul Searching, the Saul Recruitment Podcast. Jodi Lee Duncan, my guest, is waving. Hey, how you doing, Jodi?
I am fabulous. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. It's episode 62, and it's going to be a really interesting one, a topic very, very close to my heart, how to influence decision-making using psychology and marketing. So we all love that kind of stuff. And I'll do a little bit of intro into who Jodi is and learn a bit more about her backstory, and then I'll hand over the mic to her. So Jodi is a dog-loving, tea-drinking, marketing and buyer psychology extraordinaire who helps businesses get closer to their audience by understanding how their brains work. She is the owner of Fletch Co, a marketing consultancy that just happens to be named after her dog, and the ultimate geek when it comes to all things consumer behavior and psychology. With a love for storytelling, a heart for creativity, and a brain for science, she's on a mission to teach businesses how to think like their customers and create marketing that goes beyond surface level tactics. Having been in the marketing game for over 18 years, before digital marketing was cool, there's one thing she's learned that hasn't changed. Smart businesses with smart marketing win time and time again. Isn't that true?
Sure is.
Marketing is everything. And it's like something that I'm learning and realizing more and more every day, that if you don't market, nothing happens.
Exactly. Look, my favorite quote that I tell all of my clients when I start working with them is, business without marketing is like winking in the dark. So you know what you're doing, but nobody else does.
I like that. There's a great saying from way back as well. I think it might have been Jeffrey Gitomer, these authors, sales trainers that I listen to. And he said, it's not about who you know, it's about who knows you.
100%.
And that is marketing in a nutshell.
It's to a T, and still so many people don't get it. But I think when you get that light bulb moment and realize how effective marketing is and what it actually does for a business, it's a game changer.
Big time, big time.
Yeah.
But let's hand over to you. Tell us a bit more about how you got into this field. You've been in the 18 years in marketing.
I have. So starting way back when and showing how my age right here. 20 years ago, I did a business degree majoring in marketing. Right. And I remember in my first year, one of the core subjects was Psychology 101. And 17-year-old Jodi could not understand why I needed to do psychology for a business degree. Like, it just didn't make sense to me. At 17, psychology was going to see a therapist and lying on a couch, and that just didn't kind of fit into the marketing space. And then, and I think it was in my third year when I had to pick an elective, pick a major, and that's when I picked marketing. There was a subject for consumer behaviour. And so I took that subject and I loved it. Like, I was just so fascinated by, how understanding how people think and behave and like all the environmental and social factors. And I think it was one of the subjects I scored my highest results on because I just loved it. And I can actually still even remember the cover of the textbook. Like, that's how much I loved this subject. Anyway, so from there I went into 14 years in my career across multiple departments. And like you said in the introduction, it was way before social media existed and before digital marketing was cool and a thing. So it was very much like a old school marketing, very generalist role. You didn't specialize in like content creation or, copywriting and that sort of thing.
It's all about the campaign. What campaign are we going to put together?
Exactly. Client entertainment, all about client entertainment back then.
Yeah, that's right.
I think in my first job, I think I organized like 4 or 5 golf days a year. Like that was a big part of marketing.
I used to work years and years ago. I used to work in a pharmaceutical company as a sales rep. And it was all about doing all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it still happens, but it's a little bit different these days.
Now. It's a bit more governed.
Yeah. Now you've got to put it on a register if like someone takes you to the football or something. But yeah, so 14 years in various marketing departments, from law firms to education. I did a stint in retail, very short stint in retail, and then back into professional services. And then 5 years ago, I started my business. And it was then that I decided I really wanted to get back into that side of it. And it's what really fascinated me. And, when you run your own business, you're like, I can do what I want. Like, I'm not restricted to a particular job or a role. So it was probably about 2 years in that I really started to get back into it and take it seriously. And like, anything in life, the more you enjoy something and love it, the easier it becomes and the more you want to know about it. And it's such a fascinating space, like understanding how the brain works and how people think and why people buy. And
absolutely. What triggers people to look at this and not look at that, or click on this or not click on that, or buy that or not buy that? It's fascinating to me.
Exactly. And look, I will absolutely out myself here, but I am an advertiser's dream. Like, I know exactly how I'm being marketed to. I know what tactics they're using.
So you're not sliding through Facebook, double click.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, it's just because at the end of the day, that's how humans are wired, and I can help it, but at the same time, it's just what we do. So yeah, it's quite interesting.
Cool. Anyway, if you can recognize that in yourself, it can teach you
exactly
what is triggering you, which can help you trigger other people.
Exactly.
Yeah, which is fascinating. And in terms of marketing back then, I'll just call it back then because you're not old, you're still young.
In the olden days. But
back then, have you brought in some of that old school marketing study and thinking into the new digital world?
100%. 100%. Because at the end of the day, especially the psychology, the fundamentals of psychology have not changed. The way our brains are wired has not changed in millions of years. And the consumer behavior and this technology side of things, it's changed. And so it's about pairing that side with the psychology side and, marrying them up beautifully to understand like how they work together. So absolutely, it's changed the way marketing happens, but the fundamentals of how you do that. And I think the biggest mistake I see in a lot of businesses is they jump straight into that doing side of it and on the content creation, but they forget to take that step back and do the understanding and the fundamental side of it, which
totally agree.
Largely remains the same. So
the strategy behind it, who's your target audience, why you're doing it, how you're going to do it, how much you're going to spend.
Exactly.
All that kind of, before just like, let's just put on a post or put on an ad and well, now what?
Exactly. And I think, and again, social media's changed the game again because people think, it's so much easier. We can just put a post up for free and, we'll get clients and make lots of money. And I'm like, still needs to be a strategy behind it. You still need to think about what you're doing and how you're doing it and who you're doing, like, who you're trying to get attention from. So yeah, it's like one of those, marketing, I think, is the most underrated profession. Like, everyone thinks it's easy, but it's actually really quite difficult and detailed.
I think of marketing as like this incredible game for adults. It's like this game that we play, that it's intriguing. It's like unlocking the puzzle, unlocking that little clue for adults. And we're trying to think.
And sometimes you've got to go the wrong way and hit the
what's the hack? How do we find the answer? How do we find, and then something changes and then you've got to find it again. It's like this game of cat and mouse for adults.
Exactly. It's it just keeps you on your toes constantly. And that's what I love about it. Like, it doesn't get boring.
Yeah. And the other thing that I really believe now, I think that because social media, it's sophistication point, and digital media, digital marketing is so into everything we do, it's still going to be here forever for sure, and people are going to use it. But I think it's getting a little bit more saturated now. So it's getting a bit harder. And I think people have to start entertaining other ways of marketing to complement that stuff.
Yes.
Don't
Yes.
replace that, but complement it with some of the oldest, like newsletters I think are coming back, if you do them well. So there's all this stuff.
Very much. And, it's in the last 12 months, I've started to see like a lot of those traditional with a modern take, I guess you could say, ways of marketing coming back, because people like I'm a marketer, but I hate social media. Like I know it's an important part of marketing. It needs to happen, but it's just exhausting. And, you spend so much time on it and there's so much
a lot of work
crap on it. So it's just about like, you spend all of this time creating content and doing all of this stuff. And then, you get 2 likes, or you might get like 5 views, like, whatever that's like, the algorithm changes so quickly and you can't keep up with it. And so people are getting fed up with it and trying to find other ways to get in front of people. So there's a really interesting shift happening at the moment. It'll be interesting in the next year or two, I reckon, with AI coming out, just to see how much that's going to change.
Yeah, that's another whole world. That's going to be And have you noticed a change in basic decision making, just like the psychology or the science of decision making over the years, or is that always the same? It's always, I know it's very emotional. Is there anything that's changed, or any little subtlety?
Yes and no. Like, I think if you think about decision making, I would probably break it into 2 parts. Okay. Like, you've got part 1, which is fundamentally the same. Humans have always made decisions based on emotions, or majority of the time based on emotions. That hasn't changed because our brains are wired, to prioritize emotions as a survival mechanism. So that, cavemen way back when thought that way, still the same. Nothing's changed there. It can have a bit of an issue in the sense that, you get that gut instinct, which is usually based on emotions and in that subconscious thought process that isn't always rational. So sometimes we make decisions that isn't right. Like, have you ever seen someone in the street, or like one of your friends going, what are they doing? Like, why are they doing it that way? Like, that makes no sense. But to them, the information they have at hand, it's the right decision at the time. That's right. But then on the other hand, while emotions remain, like, decision making remains unchanged on the emotional side, the methods and the tools we use to make that decision have evolved dramatically. And that's because of technology, environmental factors, society, like all of those sort of factors has changed it, because now we have more information than we've ever had before at our fingertips. That it's almost like information overload, which can actually make it really hard to make a decision. So
that might lengthen the decision-making process, because
100%.
There's so much more to digest before we actually get to the end.
Exactly. Or completely just shut down and we just don't make a decision, which in itself is a decision. But, like, I think about like this week, I've just had to I'm flying my dog up north with me in a couple of months. And he used to fly with me up north before COVID, but I haven't since. And all of the pet travel's changed. So now I have to go through a third party. And, trying to make that decision has been really hard, because it's an emotional one, because my dog is my child, essentially.
Right. And your business mascot as well.
Exactly. Like, what's Fletch Co without Fletch, right? So it's just, I've had to use that data-driven side of finding all the information, finding, businesses that market well and can answer all of my questions, but use all of that information to give me this sense of ease and comfort to go, this is the right choice. They're going to look after my dog.
Love it.
So I think there's 2 parts to decisions that, you've got to think about when you're marketing or anything, really.
Well, there's an opportunity, really. If you can, in your marketing and your sales process, if you can help the audience answer all their questions as quick as possible, with as much ease as possible, you have the sale.
Exactly. And, that's what they call the uncertainty gap, closing the uncertainty gap. Like, if your marketing cannot answer all of your consumers' questions without them having to send you an email or contact you or talk to you, you've got a gap in your marketing, right? Like you said, though, there's so much information that it can be quite overwhelming.
Does that kind of follow up into clarity? Because I know that you talk a lot about clarity in your marketing. That kind of follows into clarity and all the information in one place, clear and concise, so we can make a decision.
Yeah, definitely. Because, again, like using this example of these dog or pet travel businesses, if you're not clear on, like, say, me as who your consumer is and what you're offering and, what they need to hear to make a decision and what questions they have and, how they make a decision and what their process is, if you don't have that level of clarity, then you're potentially missing that opportunity. And, when I was looking at all of these websites, I think I like shortlisted it to 5, and straight up 3 got out the door. Like I was like, nope, done. Like they don't look good to me. Their reviews aren't good. I can't find the information I need. Yep. I'm not even going to bother. So, they lost my business right then. They've lost opportunities. And if they're losing me, then how many other opportunities are they losing? So, it's about, you go to a website, you get on there and you're like, wow, they're really talking to me. They know me better than I know myself. Like they're not talking about their features and benefits. They're talking about, how it's going to change my life, how it's going to reduce my stress, how it's going to improve my business. And they really, really understand their target audience. And, there's one of my favorite sayings, another favorite saying is, the brand that is closest to the audience wins. And if that's not you, that's your competitor.
I like that.
So yeah, it's about getting really, really clear on those foundations. Yeah. So that when you do move to the doing side of it, there's like clarity in your messaging and you're consistent in your delivery. And so there's no confusion or overwhelm there. So it's that clarity through the whole point. If you're really, really clear and confident on all of that, it not only makes your marketing easier, but you're actually like almost talking directly at the person. And that's what you want. They want to feel like you're not talking to a mass group of people, that's like you're talking to them as the buyer.
Us. And that's a really good point, is that to be able to get closer to your audience, you cannot serve the whole world. You have to really find your niche and get closer to them and specialize in a way, because you cannot get that close to the whole world.
No, exactly. And the amount of times you're like, oh, who's your audience? Or you're like, oh, they're mums. I'm like, okay, like, are your mums of children? I'm like, my mum's a mum, but like, are you trying to sell baby toys to my mum? Like, it's just, you got to really understand. And it's not even demographic. It's all like what triggers them, what motivates them, what are their challenges, how they consume information, what language do they use? Like, it's all of those things that you don't think of. But like I always say, show your target audience as well as your significant other. Like, if you can know them on that level and that detail, you want them to think like, oh, wow, they get me. They know me. The better you can do at that, and which is the key, like you should think about all of that before you even start the marketing and the doing side.
Definitely. And another great point that you brought up earlier as well and made me think about is that you have to make sure that the whole customer journey and every touch point, from the initial post or lead magnet to the website, to the follow-up, to the marketing material, to the actual documentation, is all uniform and in sync. Because if there's a break, that's where you lose them. The greatest initial part of the process, and then as soon as they get to your website, it's an absolute mess. Good night, they're gone. So you've just wasted all that energy and you've cut the thread at the very time that you want it to stand for something.
Exactly. Consistency is key when it comes to marketing. And I don't mean like consistently, like 5 days a week turning up somewhere. I mean, consistently, like your message is clear and like you're saying the same thing in different ways. You're trying to solve the same problems. You're like, people just need to see
your energy. It's all in sync.
Exactly. But even like the look and feel of your marketing needs to look the same. Like if, go to my website, looks very different to, a proposal I send you that looks very different to your social media. I'll be like, what is she on? Like I can't understand. Is this the same business? So it's really important just to be really clear. And at the end of the day, if you can reduce that cognitive ease and make the decision-making process as simple as possible, that's when you're going to win.
Yeah, love that. And what exactly your business and who you specialize marketing to, or who do you work with? Just so we know.
So I work in the B2B space, and I say B2B because that's what people understand. But what I usually mean in B2B is H to H, human to human, because, in every business, you're not marketing to a business, you're marketing to a human within the business.
That's right.
Right. So that person is going to be the one that's making decisions. That's the person that you need to understand. That's the person, or the people you need to. I'll say B2B because that's just a recognized term. So I work in B2B predominantly in the professional services space because that's where I come from in the corporate world. But I do work with some service-based businesses outside of the corporate space. But it's usually small businesses who just want to leg up in marketing. They want to understand what they're doing because they don't have massive budgets to throw at mistakes here and there. And once they understand, they're like, oh, like I said before, you understand that psychology side of it, you have that light bulb moment, it just makes it easier to just do it, which means you stop wasting so much time, you stop spending so much money because it's targeting, like you've got purpose and intent with your marketing. And I just love watching like those, like, wow, that makes sense. Like, that's my favorite part.
Nice. And they get you to work with them on all sorts of different campaigns, from digital to non-digital, traditional, everything.
I work more in the strategy space. So as a marketing consultant or marketing and biopsychology consultant, I run workshops with their teams to help them get clarity, usually is a big one, and overcome any roadblocks or obstacles they've got. And then I work with them to develop their strategy. So rather than just doing it my own, I work with them. So they're part of the process. You know, they know their business better than I do. I know the marketing side. So let's work together. And then I work in like a fractional CMO, I should call it, space.
Yep.
So if they've got like a one person marketing team or a small marketing team or a VA or something, I'll generally work with them to help them like implement and execute and adjust as everything in the world changes so quickly. And
that's become a really big niche now. CMOs, this new or VMOs. I've seen this a lot now.
Which been around for a while, but we're just getting cool. So.
Well, Jodi, I want to get into a lot of the science now and get into the behavioral stuff, the real, the stuff that you studied and the stuff that you're passionate about, all the geeky stuff.
Yeah.
I'd love you to tell us more about the behavioral science of influencing, what we should do, what we should think about, any tips and tricks that we can use from a corporate point of view to make our marketing more effective.
Yeah, just for like a lot of people probably don't even know what behavioral science is. So that's kind of just the understanding of how consumers behave and how they buy and how they make decisions. And it's usually brought together with insights from like psychology, sociology, economics, and bundling all of that together so that you can, again, what we've talked about, understand how people are behaving, how they think, act, and behave, how they're making buying decisions, and then applying that to marketing so that you can really target them and make your marketing work smarter, not harder. When you touched before on emotional marketing, like that is a huge part of marketing and something that is often quite overlooked, because emotional marketing, like I said, like most of our decisions are made from emotions. So if you can tap into those emotions and you can make people feel about how they feel about making a purchase or making a decision, that helps guide them to a favorable action or a favorable outcome for you as the business, right? How do we do that? How do we tap into emotions? And take a step back, disclaimer, when I say emotions, and like I say, most people are like, but I'm not emotional. I don't make decisions on emotions. And I hate to tell it, but you do.
Like, emotional.
Exactly. And I don't mean like emotional, like crying in the shower with a bottle of wine emotional. Like, I mean, it can be fear, it can be anger, it can be like, CEOs are massive.
It could be just, I saw it, I've got to have it. And that's
exactly
that's
right.
Emotion.
It brings me joy.
I've just got to have it.
Exactly. Global company CEOs make decisions based on fear. Like, this could collapse if I don't. So I just need to make it a disclaimer that, I hate to tell you whether you like it or not. You might not be emotional, but you're making decisions based on emotion. So how do we tap into those sort of things? And I mean, I could talk about emotional marketing for a really long time. Like that in itself is massive. But what I'll do is I'll just focus on a couple of really key areas and like not overly complicated areas where people can really just tap into. And probably the biggest one and the easiest one would be storytelling. And you probably hear marketers talk about storytelling all the time. And I don't mean like, once upon a time there was a prince and a princess. Like that's not the storytelling I'm talking about. Storytelling is a way to really connect with the readers, because when somebody reads a story that, gives them a warm feeling, or they read it and they like connect with it, it releases a hormone in your brain which creates like empathy and bonding. So
which hormone is that? Is that dopamine, serotonin?
Oxytocin. I always get that wrong. Oxytocin. Yeah. So basically what that does is that helps like create that connection by creating a narrative like that they relate to, right? So if you can create a story that relate to where they can see themselves in that story, it helps them to visualize how your service is going to help them or benefit them, right? Not even a service. So say at the start of last year, I was working with a real estate agent, and he was relatively new to the real estate agent game, but he was quite savvy. He was like, how can I up my game? Basically, like, what can I do? It's really quite simple. Like real estate's a really easy one, because when you think about it, I'm selling houses. You're not selling houses. You're selling dreams and you're selling stuff. Like that is it, right?
Family and all that.
Exactly. And so obviously they're looking at different places. So how can you make yours stand out from other people? So, you could take somebody into a house that's empty with 4 walls and tiles and some blinds and, let them create their own space and their dream or whatever. Or something that we've seen really rise in the last 5 years is like staging companies coming in and making it look like a home and giving that really warm environment. And so as soon as they step in, you've created that cognitive ease by them not having to think. They just see how the space looks.
Yep. So that's already storytelling. By coming in and fitting out a whole place or even virtually doing it, you're storytelling. This is what it could be.
Exactly. And like even the photos on, realestate.com, all of a sudden they're not just looking at an empty room going, I'm not quite sure. Is that big? Is that small? I'm not, but I can see a couch in there. So now I can kind of picture the
There's a fireplace and I can see myself having a glass of wine after a hot day.
Exactly. Because, you walk into somehow, like I bought a house at the end of last year, and you walk into a house and some agents will just be like, yep, go, see ya. Like, let me know if you've got any questions. Yeah. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Some people like that, right? Yeah. But if you're taking like a one-on-one family and you can be like, telling a story, the massive backyard for the kids to play in. And so with this client, what we did is I said, the age-old story, and it's so cliche, but I'm like, burn a gingerbread scented candle before they come in. So there's that warm, feeling of, I'm home, like mum's cooking bickies sort of thing. Like it's about like the neuromarketing, which is like activating all of the senses. So you get your scent going. So as soon as they've walked in, you've got that smell. Like they're like, like nostalgia, like I'm at grandma's house sort of thing. Then in the lounge room, I'm like, set up like a board game, whether it's something really easy like Guess Who or whatever it is. So when the family walks in, you can say, hey, kids, play in there. I'll take mum and dad to look at the house. Mum and dad come back and see their kids having a great time in the lounge room, playing games, having fun. Yeah. Like it's all just little things like that, but you're telling a story, right? You're helping them see themselves in there and creating that emotional connection to it. Yep. And like if you don't have a physical place like a house to show, it's just as easy. Like, think about Spotify. They do that personalized wrap of the year, right? And you get to see everything you've listened to and your top podcasts, and you can share it with your friends and you put it on social media and everyone's like, hey, I did it too. And so you've created almost like a sense of community amongst your people by all talking about what you're listening to. And it creates that emotion of going, oh yeah, I really love that song. Yeah, I did listen to that a lot. And so again, you're telling a story without physically telling a story.
Telling the story. And you can do that in your video marketing. You can do that in your promotional material that you might send out. It's just really trying to connect with the why that you do something more than just what
That's
you do.
That's exactly right. And, even just like I was just saying before, the client, telling a story of how it worked for your client. My client did this and this is the outcome. Right. Like someone's like, oh, actually, I would want that outcome. Like that's exactly what I'm looking for. And if that worked for that person, then we've got social proofing. And they're like, okay, great. I'll at least connect with them to talk to them. Yeah, there's lots of different ways you can incorporate story time, but it is so powerful. It really has that emotional connection, which at the end of the day, most people don't even realize is emotional. It's just like all of that feels and all happening up in the subconscious.
Everything. That's one aspect. There were two others.
Yes, one. And then we've got emotional triggers. So you can talk about like emotional triggers where, people hate losing out. We've got like, say FOMO, right? So you can tap into things like limited time deals or limited availability.
Limited edition. What do you call it? Premium service or premium release or whatever.
Exactly. Or exclusive access, only the first 50 people get in here, or like, so, it's that way of, we don't want to miss out. Like
creating scarcity. Yeah.
Exactly. But in an ethical way. We don't want to be making people feel like they're scared all the time. But think about the Taylor Swift concert. Obviously, everyone knows about the Taylor Swift concert. And people were buying tickets to go to this. They didn't like Taylor Swift. They didn't like her music, but they wanted to be part of something. They didn't want to miss out. So they're spending $300 on tickets to go to a concert of someone they're not particularly fond of, but the atmosphere will be amazing. It'd be cool and I can put it on social media. Like, it's that. And because there was exclusivity, even though the exclusivity was hundreds of thousands of people, like it was still exclusive because people were missing out, right?
That's right.
Even like any other concert or anything, you're like, or when, you're launching something, you're like, join the wait list, and wait list will find out first and they'll get access to things that you won't get if you're not on the wait list. So people are like, ooh, I want to get on the wait list. And so again, you're like tapping into those emotional side of things of going, oh, like I really want to get in on that sort of thing.
So these are like triggers and things that create scarcity and create value in a way.
Yeah, exactly. So it's about triggering the emotions. How can we trigger an emotion?
That's cool.
And another way is like personalizing your marketing. I've talked about obviously ways of getting people in, but think about, and this is another mistake a lot of businesses make, they forget to market to their clients once they have them. Like they're like, oh, we've got them. We don't have to do anything. So but the marketing process continues, but it changes once you've got them as a client,
Definitely.
right?
You want to keep them. You want to get referrals. You want to get repeat business. You don't want to just let them drop off the side of the planet.
Which most people, a lot of them do. They're literally like, oh, we've delivered the service. Like they'll come back to us if they need something else. I'm like, yeah, but if you're not there constantly, like nurturing that relationship, then why would they?
Absolutely.
Sort of thing. So if you can like personalize, so that's when the personalization can really tap in, and you can be emotional marketing can really tap into that brand loyalty. So you're creating a new product or a new service. So you reach out to some of these loyal fans, the customers or clients that have worked with you previously on something similar. And you're like, hey, I'm creating this. I'd love your input. I'd love you to test it. I'd love you to do this. Yeah. So it's like really personalized for them, and that they give you feedback and you're making changes based on their feedback. Yep. When you go to release it, you can be like, hey, I'm releasing this. We'll give you a discount or whatever. We'll give you access free or whatever it is. But now they've got an emotional connection to it. They're like, I'm going to tell all my friends about it because I was a part of the process of making this.
And they almost feel guilty not to purchase or not to buy in because and they're involved in the process.
Exactly. And that's what you call, I can never say this word, the
reciprocity.
Like that one. I can never say that word.
Reciprocity. Yep.
No. Effect.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Oh, I really struggle with that word. I will get it one day. You give someone something, they feel like they have to give you something back. Yep. Like I owe you a favor.
That's right.
But at the same time, you've created that connection and bond to it that they feel like they're doing it anyway, not as a favor.
Yeah, so true.
So there's lots of little things you can do that like tap into those emotions and
psychology.
Exactly, because at the end of the day, they don't realize that this is happening, but you're like, I know what I'm doing here. Like there is a purpose and a point to this, and it's not just to get your feedback. Like, there's a whole thought process and strategy behind it.
And that kind of brings us to a very interesting point, or a very interesting topic, ethics.
Mm-hmm.
Because I always think about this and I'm thinking, all right, so where does the line of influence and manipulation, where is the line here?
Yes, look, it's a very good question, and there are a lot of businesses across it. It just comes down to like that honesty and that trust, and you shouldn't be using anything that I've said or any psychological principles or biases should not be used to manipulate or exploit somebody. Yeah. It should be used to benefit them. It's used to help make a decision in a positive way, not tapping into their fears and insecurities and like you were saying, scarcity before, like scarcity works, but you've got to be that there's a really fine line there. Yeah, like you don't want people to be going like, oh my God, they're always making me feel like I have to buy something. Like I always want to be buying blah, blah, blah. Like that after a while people get tired of that and they'll check out, and then that's going to ruin your brand and your reputation. So it's a really fine line, again, between manipulation and exploitation. Like you don't want to be scamming people. Or like, using things like nudges, like, little things where you can pushes, pushes and where you're presenting something to them to like kind of push them, nudge them in a direct, but they're doing so on their own with all the options open to them. You're not going, you have to go that way. That's the only way.
I think that's a good point. It's how you frame it as well. It's guys, This is the situation. We can do this. We can do that. We can do this. Your call. What do you want to do?
That's exactly right. It's again, like I said, it's just about making people know their options and awareness and using these little triggers to go, oh, I can do that and I can do that. And like, again, it's a fine line, but just to use an example, I put it in my newsletter last week and that's why it triggered, is back in 2013, Burger King released a new product called Satisfries.
Oh, cool.
Which were a healthy version to their fries, right? Okay. So they wanted to tap into this, the trend of people moving towards healthier foods and, fast food and junk and blah, blah, getting away from that. And so they tried to bring in this healthier option. It probably would have been around the same time that McDonald's was bringing in their healthy menu, that sort of thing. But the problem is they introduced these Satisfries. They were the healthy option, so they charged a premium price for them. Mm-hmm. But did absolutely nothing in their marketing or anywhere to say why they were healthy or how they were healthy or transparent on any information. They were just saying, less calories, blah, blah, high this, blah, blah. So people were just confused going, why am I paying more money for something that you're saying is healthier, but there's no evidence to back it up? That's right. So they were manipulating people to buy a more expensive product that they had branded healthy, but there was absolutely nothing to prove that they actually were.
There was no basis.
Healthy.
There was no,
So they
no
So they were exploiting people's like need and want to be healthier, eating at a fast food joint like, Burger King, to eat something healthier, when in fact, did it really have any more health benefits? We just want to make more money out of you, sort of thing. So lo and behold, it didn't last 12 months.
I suppose it's a good like warning for the audience and for the public or the purchaser, the buyer, to just think about things properly, do your homework a little bit, make sure that you're comfortable and you're not being triggered without the right information.
Exactly. In today's world, people are so much more savvy with this sort of thing. Like with so much more information and access to finding information, people are doing more research than ever when buying things. Like, especially if it's something new, then usually going to do a lot more research. So it's a lot harder in that instance to, pull something over consumers these days. You'll get, some people because they're like, whatever, have my money. That sounds amazing. I love you. But other people will be like, hang on a second, let me just do my research on this and let me check on this first. So at the end of the day, it is on the consumer, but businesses have a responsibility to be transparent and honest in their marketing.
And I think also if you believe in what you do and you believe in your product or your service and you really think it's going to be of benefit to the other person, then you do all your best, but you do it in the right way to try and make sure you convince them or influence them in a certain way.
That's right. And people will see that. That comes across in your marketing. Like, you can always see a mile away. You're like, this is a scam or something's not right here. Yeah. Whereas, I said people are pretty switched on these days. So
especially now, we're much more sophisticated in how we perceive being sold to. Our radar is much more sophisticated than years ago. Like in the old days of selling, it was about the trial close or the close, or would that be cash or check? Or, how many would you like? I mean, that stuff wouldn't fly anymore.
No, gosh, no.
It's more about just how do we feel with that other person? Do we feel that other person is trying to ram something down our throat? Or do we like this other person and they're taking a step back and they're walking us through it in a nice way? So our radar is much more powerful and sophisticated than it ever was.
And being able to see that, a business that just talks about themselves and their features and what they're good at all the time is not like you want somebody who's cares about your benefits and your outcome. And it's what we call like conscious branding. People want to be buying from people who are conscious about what they're doing in the world and who they're doing it with. So there's a big shift there, definitely.
Definitely. Well, I'm going to ask you to tell us a story now.
I love storytelling.
Good. I'd love you to tell us a story about a process or a campaign that you've just worked on where you obviously very confidential, but maybe give us an example of where you might have gone into a corporate or professional services company and you really helped them, and what did they achieve? What was the result? Just to give us an idea of the kind of stuff that you do.
Probably about 6 months ago, I worked with a client on releasing a new product. Well, it was their first product. They productized their service, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
We did a whole campaign around it. We built up hype. We did that whole wait list. Yeah. We did. And look, I will put a disclaimer. They had quite a big following already. Like they are quite well known in their industry and they have quite a big following and quite an active like an email database. So we really played into that and we knew that's where we could tap into the audience. So we created the exclusivity where, let's go on the wait list. And that was probably about 4 weeks out. We didn't start too early, about 4 weeks out. This is the first time we're releasing this product. Like before, it was always really expensive services. We brought in like an inexpensive way of being able to tap into us, get our brands, get our information. Mm-hmm. So there was this really big hype process, I guess you could say. And we use lots of different storytelling from visuals, videos, all of that sort of stuff. I think it was 72 hours before they actually released the product is when we released it to the wait list.
Wow, cool.
So leading up to that, we were like on it, social media, emails, like, are you on yet? Are you missing out? We started trickling information like the first 10 people will get this. The next 10 people will get this.
Nice.
And, as more people joined, they got less, if that made sense. So we kind of cut off, like, if you want all of this, you have to get in quick. You have to do this.
We created this time limit, this time frame as well.
100%. And all that exclusivity. And part of the process of releasing it is we released this exclusive community that you could only be a part of if you were buying the product. So we've got, the limited availability, we've got this exclusivity, and in that exclusive contract they would have limited but still access to the clients. There was this really big hype up about it, and so by the time they launched, like on the wait list, they had sold more than expectation. Like they had sold, I can't even remember figures. I think that on the wait list, I think they made about, I think wait list was about $60,000 in sales.
Oh.
I mean, it wasn't a cheap product. It was quite a decent sized product, but compared to their service, it was quite a good price. I think it was the first 24 hours, I think they sold like another $20,000 or $30,000. It's just gone from strength to strength. And so now they're already be like, all right, what's the next product? Like what can we do next? But what they're doing is in this new product is where I was talking before and where I got the idea from is the people that were in that first block of buying, they're now being testers for the new product.
Gotcha.
So that was one. Yeah. So that was like, now they get first access. So, when there's all this hype, you're like, oh, I get first access. I get to say something about this. I get it. So
I get to help craft it. And so
that's exactly right.
Useful to me.
Yeah. And so, now we've created this. I mean, like I said, they had a pretty big brand loyalty already, but now they've created like epic for life brand loyal fans here. And really it came down to, we did a lot of storytelling. We did tap into a lot of the exclusivity and the psychological triggers, and lots of different cognitive biases in there. And ethically, I will say we use them ethically, but it was really that hype and that launch process was really key. And obviously we're continue marketing and using all of the bits and pieces. But for us, it was that launch campaign that was key. So that was a really fun one to work on.
Yeah, sounds great. And I love the way that you tapped into their existing audience and you just nurtured it and really took it to the next level, really gave it a boost. And you did that using social media, but also using traditional email marketing, which is so powerful.
And it worked because we knew them. We knew what they wanted. We knew how they worked. Like we knew how they thought. We knew what would trigger them to want to get on the wait list. We kind of knew what sort of bonuses we could throw in to grab them. So we used a lot of data. We had quite a lot of data from like previous experiences and lots of information to work off, which helps. And I know that's not the case for a lot of businesses who may not have had it before or had a big audience, but it is a good way of learning, you can still build that hype with a small audience.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot to be said about launch campaigns. They're fun, but they're stressful.
Yeah, they would be. Lots of work. And you've got to find that fine line between creating hype and then driving people crazy.
That's exactly right. You don't want to be every
line.
Exactly.
We don't get me out of here. I've had enough.
Exactly. At the same time, I'm like, I don't want to be bombarding you with emails. I'm not sending you daily emails. Leading up to, we did quite a bit. We're 48 hours, 24 hours, those we did, but we're not 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, it was those key periods. And by that stage, they were engaged and they were wanting it. They were wanting it. So it's about knowing your audience and it's about knowing how they work and what triggers them and what motivates them and what they need to hear and where they're hanging out and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's that clarity. Once you've got clarity, it makes it a lot easier.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, you've given us a lot to think about. I hope everybody really enjoyed that and really starts to think about storytelling.
Yes.
Emotional triggering.
Stories.
What was the third one? Storytelling, emotional triggering. Personalization. I think really important in whatever it is they're doing. It could be marketing, traditional campaigns, social media campaigns, marketing material, videos, building a website, your email signature. It could be anything.
The things.
You could just use these concepts to help you connect with your audience and sell and market better.
Market smarter, not harder.
Yep, I love it. But before we finish, I'd love you to tell us more about Fletch Co. and Fletch. Where is Fletch there? No?
He's not there. Fletcher is my CEO of Fletch Co.
Oh, cute. Very cute. Oh.
Yeah. So he's our canine executive officer.
Right.
Yeah. Fletch Co is so like I said earlier, I've had it for been running it for about 5 years now. It's a marketing biopsychology consultancy. It's a bit of a mouthful. I work with my clients basically to help on that clarity piece. And what I like to call is we do a lot of the pre-marketing. So we get all that clarity, we build the strategy, we brainstorm, we get whatever they need in that space there, and then help them to execute. I've got a new digital product coming out shortly, which is designed to do that, but more of a DIY sort of space. So it's just about really helping people understand the importance of taking a step back and getting those foundations in place and really getting clear and concrete on that before you start doing, so that you're not wasting time and money.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important because these days there's more and more and more things you could do. We're getting bombarded by tools, AI,
Exactly.
platforms. Like you can't be on everything and do everything, and it'll cost you a fortune. So you got to be thinking smart.
Exactly. And, not being on TikTok because someone told you had to be on TikTok. Like, if that's not where your clients are hanging out, then you're wasting your time. Like, so yeah, it's about really understanding. I mean, the only way you can say it is like getting clear and understanding like who you're marketing to, why you're marketing, how you're marketing, what drives them, what motivates them, and really get clear on that.
And how do we find you? Just Fletch Co.
On Instagram of Fletch Co. I think it's Fletch Co _ fletchandco.com.au is the website. I'm on LinkedIn, Jodi Lee Duncan.
Beautiful.
They're probably, or if you're on Pinterest, I'm on Pinterest, Fletch Co on Pinterest.
Cool.
They're probably the main ways to find me.
Awesome. But I'll make sure that we put all the details in the show notes.
Wonderful.
I always like to leave my guest with the last word. Anything that you want to give our audience in terms of fun message for marketing?
Just get clear. One of the things I always say is you wouldn't build a house without putting your foundations in place first. So why would you put your walls up first before you put your foundations and your concrete down? So don't do it with your business. Don't put your walls up first. So
I love it. See what we got? How cool. Well done. Jodi, thank you
Wonderful.
So much.
Thank you.
A lot of fun. I really enjoyed that.
So did I. Thank you so much for having me at Fletch.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us. And tell me more about your product when it comes out. I'd love to know.
Yes, definitely. And, it'll be here soon.
Beautiful. But really, really enjoyed it. And everybody out there, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Got some great tips and tricks to use in your marketing. And if you want to reach out to Jodi, please do. I'm sure she'll be only too happy to hear from you.
Yes, please.
Awesome. So everyone have a great weekend, and we'll see you very, very soon for our next episode. Bye for now.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thanks again for joining me for another episode of Saul Searching, the Saul Recruitment Podcast. If you'd like to join me as a guest on the show, I would be delighted to collaborate. Feel free to buzz me on 0414 659 800 or email me on darren@saulrecruitment.com.au. I'm always on the lookout for great guests who can share their stories and expertise with my community. But for now, though, have a fantastic day, and I'll see you next time.